Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
A magic beyond anything you could ever imagine.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Sagrera Farms on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day.
You really think that's the best idea?
Live from the Raising Cane studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
It's quite a piece of work.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane studio downtown in the capital city on this Thursday, working towards the weekend. Hope y'all are staying dry and safe out there. And overnight into this morning was not really pleasant for a lot of folks south of I-10 in the state of Louisiana. So I hope everybody is doing okay. Appreciate you being with us. We got a ton to get to over the next 2 hours. I can't even fit everything into the show today, which is a rarity in late June, but it's the case today. We'll talk Saints with Luke Johnson at 1:15. They wrapped up their mandatory minicamp this week. Kellen Moore's met with the media, obviously Cam Jordan as well. So we'll talk to Luke in 15 minutes about the black and gold. We'll go to Omaha, Nebraska at 1:30. Joe Healy generally with us on Thursdays. Gave him last week off. It was media day. That's a circus up there at Charles Schwab Field, but they got a couple days off there in Omaha before we get the title series underway. So we'll talk about that with Joe at 1:30. U.S. Open is underway from Shinnecock up there in New York. Baseball America's got a really, really, really interesting story about the new Major League Baseball collective bargaining push, and it involves college baseball in a huge way. So we'll discuss a little bit of that. John Blau is going to join us at 2 o'clock. You probably don't know who John Blau is. You will. John Blau is the new LSU beat writer for The Advocate. He comes, interestingly, from the Clemson beat. So we're going to talk to John about why he decided to come down here, what he's learned in a very, very short period of time here in Baton Rouge. And really, I want to get his thoughts on Dabo Swinney's program because he's followed it very, very closely for the last few years there. And, of course, LSU will open with Clemson. So going to get John on in an hour from right now. Lane Kiffin spoke with Tyrann Mathieu. We'll get to some of that right now and in hour number 2. And Kellen Moore with the media yesterday. Get into a little bit of that. So as you can see, we got plenty to do. Let's dive in. It's our opening drive.
Welcome to the big league.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive. Presented by Fabry Chevrolet GMC in St. Francisville.
It goes without saying at this point that LSU's on a bit of a heater on the recruiting trail. We're writing a story on every commitment as they come on LouisianaSports.net, and I feel like I'm chained to my desk. They get a commitment every 25 minutes is what it feels like at this point. It's been just an absolute rush on high-level players for LSU football from the high school ranks. And when everyone was discussing Lane Kiffin's decision to leave Ole Miss for LSU, one of the defenses of Lane Kiffin doing that, and there were very few defending Lane Kiffin, but one of the defenses was LSU is a better place to recruit to, generally speaking. That doesn't mean you can't get great players to Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin did. He got a lot of great players to Ole Miss. Most of them were in the transfer portal, but he got a lot of great players to Ole Miss. But LSU has churned out NFL players, has recruited blue-chip recruits, has landed high-end transfers now for 25 years at the highest level of college football. And it's just a brand and a geographical footprint that is conducive to landing big names. And Lane Kiffin has capitalized on that in just 7 months on the job. I looked at this. This is objective data when you consider it's a subjective process, but this is data over 5 years at Ole Miss from the class of 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 5 signing classes at Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin landed 1 5-star recruit, according to 1-3, Suntarine Perkins. And he's great, but 1. At LSU, he got signatures from Richard Anderson and Lamar Brown right when he got here. In-state guys. That's 2 5-stars. And in this class, Ahmad Hudson's committed. He's a 5-star. KJ Green is committed. 247 Sports calls him a 5-star. And you got Chris Whitehead yesterday, who won the 247 composite, is a 5-star. So in 7 months, Lane Kiffin has either signed or gotten commitments from 5 5-stars, and that doesn't count the one you lost to Miami. So 5 5-stars in 7 months against 1 in 5 years. It's just a little bit different game here. That's not going to satisfy the folks that say you can never, under any circumstance, leave a team that's headed to the college football playoff, and that's fine. But if you're just looking at this from a recruiting perspective, one of the reasons we thought that he might jump for LSU, it's starting to pay off. And Kiffin went on to Tyrann Mathieu's podcast that you can find wherever you find your podcasts, and they had a good conversation. It covered a lot of different topics, and recruiting was one of them. And Tyron asked him about how the portal has impacted high school recruiting. Here was Lane's response.
Still, you want to build your core team through high school, especially when you're at a place like LSU and you can get the great players. And so you build it the old-fashioned way, and then you supplement through the portal. You don't want to not do any portal because you don't miss on those guys near as much. So follow this. In the NFL, they miss all the time, right? Right. And they have all that resources to evaluate them. They have all the college games, and you still miss. So we certainly know that we miss a lot in high school recruits over the years. Well, in the portal, you're going to miss less because now you've seen them in college games. You've seen them maybe if you're taking SEC guys, so you miss less. So you do still want some portal guys because normally those guys are pretty sure bets for the most part, like they're going to be what you see, where high school, there's still so many variables.
And look, I agree with that sentiment. I still believe in the transfer portal era where you can go get Sam Levitt and you can go get, name your big-time contributor in the transfer portal. There's a bajillion of them. You can go get Jordan Seaton. You can go get a lot of different players all over the field to help you for a year. But I still contend you need Whit Weeks in the program. You need Will Campbell in the program. You need Malik Neighbors in the program. You need to go get those guys. You need to have guys that are in your program for 3 years that you develop in your system that blossom into the players you're looking for. You need to land DJ Pickett and put him in your secondary for 3 years. That, to me, is important. You've got to supplement. You've got to do both. But the high-end, Louisiana especially guy, you need to land. You need Trey Green here for 3 years. That's a big deal. And so it's just a better place to recruit than Ole Miss was. Because in Mississippi, you're still fighting off LSU. You're still fighting off Alabama. You're still fighting off Mississippi State. In LSU, in Louisiana, you're fighting those guys off, but you've got a leg up more often than not. And I think that is being evidenced early on. You're not winning any games by getting commitments in June. No one is suggesting you are. But landing them, I think, is an important step in building great football teams. And Kiffin spoke about how they present themselves in recruiting on Tyron's podcast.
We just are who we are. When kids come here, families come here, like, we are who we are. Like, you don't get this show on recruiting. I think a lot of places present themselves one way in recruiting, and then when you get there, you're like, dang, that's not what I saw. Like, the coaches acted this way, and then we got there and it's totally different. Now they're yelling at us. And so we just present who we are. I mean, it's pretty laid back, but it's like, hey, what you see is what you get. We have very low transfer rates of players that are playing. Because when you come here, you're not going, dang, man, like, you're not calling your mom going, this ain't what they did on the recruiting weekend. Man, this is totally, or they promised me this, but I didn't get this. So I tell our coaches all the time, don't make promises, man, just tell them you're going to get a chance to play, compete, to start, but you're going to have to earn it. Because otherwise you get in those promises and then the locker room starts going, well, he told me this, he told me that. We just are who we are.
And what I gathered from that, because he talked about having a low transfer rate, he hasn't had time to have guys transfer out of LSU. He hasn't been here. So he's talking about what they did at Ole Miss in recruiting there. So what I gathered from that soundbite was that they're recruiting the same way at LSU, the same methodology that they did in Oxford. And you just saw that I rattled off the change in results from the high-profile players. Not only are they landing these in-state kids, you're getting Richard Anderson, you're getting Lamar Brown, you're getting Ahmad Hudson, but they're also going out of the state to Virginia to get Chris Whitehead. They've gone into Florida and gotten a 5-star commitment. It flipped, but you earned it. You've gone to the East Coast. Like, you have gone out and used LSU's brand both locally and nationally to attract higher profile talent in Baton Rouge in a short time than you did at Ole Miss. And you're not changing anything that you did, is essentially what I'm drawing from that. And that's really the point. I made this proclamation a couple of weeks ago. It got onto social media and it got a little bit of traction, but I believe this to be true, and I don't think this is an earth-shattering take, but I do believe it to be true. Lane's never going to win over the people in Oxford. But if he wants to win over the people nationally, he's going to have to win huge, and Ole Miss is probably going to have to flop. And if that happens, then everyone nationally will be forced to look at this and go, well, That was really unfortunate timing when he jumped ship in December of a championship level team. But he really was propping Ole Miss up, and the ceiling really was higher at LSU. That's the only way he's going to seek the approval for the decision that he seeks. And I believe he seeks that because he's gone out and said as much in the media. He's attempted to justify his departure from Oxford. He doesn't have to do that to anyone here in Louisiana and in Baton Rouge. Everyone here is throwing their arms around him. They love it. It's fantastic. This is a national discussion. It's not an LSU discussion. But he seeks the approval of those nationally. And he's going to have to win huge and win a national championship to get that done. And he believes that. Jordan will play number 11 here in a second. But he believes they'll get that done. It's the only way to justify what he did to those nationally. I'm fine with it as is. So are you if you're listening to the show, I'm assuming. But the only way he's going to justify it nationally is if they win huge. And this is Kiffin talking about national championships.
I don't know how fast it's going to happen. We're going to win a national championship. We're going to have the teams and the rosters back to the way that they were playing when they were great. I don't know how fast. That might not be today, right. But it's going to happen. And I feel it in recruiting too. When these kids come in here, and now that we got our staff fully here and we know how to sell LSU too, because now we're meeting up people and know the restaurants and the areas and the people, like it's 101.
Yeah.
What Nick Saban said. Yeah. It's the best job in America.
You're starting to sense a little bit of that. Now look, it's June. It is June. They go 7-5 this year. We're going to be singing a different tune around here, okay? I understand how all this works. I know where we are in the calendar. But you're looking at a lot of 5 stars jumping in the boat. You're looking at a really good crop of Louisiana kids they've got a chance to hit on. And that's really the point, is accumulating talent. And once you do that, he's shown he can coach it. Blake Baker has shown he can coach it. And you'll knock on that door enough times to beat it down. And he thought there was a better chance to do that here than Oxford. You can't prove that 7 months in June. But if you're just looking for breadcrumbs that are headed that direction, this is it. Doesn't mean it's locked in. Doesn't mean it's set in stone. But these are the breadcrumbs you're looking for. LSU doing some work on the high school recruiting trail. There is no doubt about that. Thursday show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Let's talk some Saints next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Lifetime Roofing, lifetimeroofingla.com, lifetimeroofingla.com. If you're in South Louisiana, you got a lot of rain. You're maybe still getting a little bit of rain right now. If you've got a leak issue or you feel like this is the storm that exposed, you may need to get your roof looked at. Let the folks at Lifetime Roofing do it. Because there will be some roofing companies that may go up there, see a small issue, think, I could do a repair, but they'll pay me more if we get the whole roof put in. Let's recommend that. Can't have it. You got to be able to trust your roofer. And you can trust the folks at Lifetime Roofing. They'll go up there, inspect your roof. If you need a new roof, they'll tell you. If you just need a repair, they'll handle it. Maybe it's all good and just need a fortification to get ready for storm season. It's obviously here. Just had our first named one roll through. Make sure you're proactive and not reactive. Call the folks at Lifetime Roofing. Check them out online at lifetimeroofingla.com and realize they come with a lifetime workmanship warranty on that craftsmanship as well as the materials. It's Lifetime Roofing. Find them online at lifetimeroofingla.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Thursday show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Got some really interesting proposals from Major League Baseball that could drastically reshape college baseball. We'll talk about that coming up in 30 minutes. We'll go to Omaha in 15 minutes, talk to Joe Healy from D1 Baseball about the College World Series final. It'll be Oklahoma and North Carolina for it all starting on Saturday night. Let's talk some Saints. Luke Johnson joins us on Thursdays. He is with NOLA.com and The Advocate. Joins us on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Luke, how we doing?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
It's our pleasure. Got another look and the first kind of look at the full squad here in a mandatory minicamp. First, seems like everybody showed up. That's got to be a good sign, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think so, right? Nobody actually had any absences from the mandatory portion. That includes Alvin Kamara, who I think is kind of continuing to play a little bit of a game of chicken with the Saints. But yeah, everybody was there, including Cam Jordan, right? Like that's like the thing that we have all been kind of wondering about over the course of this off season, as he's been a free agent and comes in and joins the team right during minicamp. So like I think, like personally, I like where they're at, even with some of the guys that they're being very cautious with from like an injury standpoint and kind of holding them out of the full team stuff.
Is Cam Jordan's role similar on this team than it was last team? I know that they've obviously fortified things with a couple of intriguing prospects in the offseason on the edge, but what do you feel like his role is?
Yeah, I think that remains to be seen a little bit. I think if they were, kind of convinced that it would be less of a role than it was last year, I think they would have been honest with him about that. They're not going to play games with Cam Jordan at this stage of his career, at any stage of his career, right? He's one of the best players in franchise history, and maybe if you're being real about it, probably the second best player in franchise history. So I don't think they would have lied to him. But at the same time, I think you got a guy in Tyree. I'm blanking on the last name. Tyree Wilson, thank you. Who's a 7th overall pick a couple years ago, and maybe he was just in a bad situation. They can get more out of him. Anthony Jennings has played some high level football in his career in like a kind of a reserve role. So, I don't necessarily think it's guaranteed. Like if he ends up playing 30% of the snaps instead of whatever it was last year, let's call it 50. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised, but I don't think that it's going to be this. I don't know. It's a long way of saying that. Like, I don't think that it's going to be like this drastic reduction in his role. But if it is, I think it's because he's not the same player that he was last year.
Let's talk about some of the things you saw on the practice field. We all realize it's not exactly the genuine article of October here, but passing game thoughts that you saw.
I think some up and down. It's definitely hard to say like you're getting a true sense of it without Chris Olave and Jordan Tyson in there.
Right.
And a lot of the guys that Shuck specifically was working with are guys he doesn't have a lot of time on task with, besides Devon Bailey, who was only there for a handful of his starts last year. I think there was like some highs and lows. There were some moments when it looked really, really good, and there were some moments when it looked out of sync. But I think that is, to me, that's just like early stage stuff that I'm not even remotely concerned about. I think for me the thing, it's less of a takeaway from all the stuff that I've been seeing on the field, which like I just don't feel like I can put a lot of stock into it, a lot of weight into it. And it's more about like the stuff I'm hearing about like the team itself. I think Shuck just has a really, really good head on his shoulders. I think he knows how to do this. Beyond like the physical stuff that we saw last year, I think the thing that's going to separate him is that he's got it between the ears, and the fact that he's organizing a passing camp with all of his pass catchers. I mean, he's paying for it out of his own pocket to fly him out there to Del Mar, like the San Diego area, to do some on-field work and get the timing down, but also to go bond and to get closer and go play some golf, go to the beach, whatever. Like that stuff matters. It matters that your quarterback is taking the time to do that and put it all together. So like any of the stuff that I saw that was just like that didn't look great today, I'm not worried about it on whatever it is today, June 18th. If it's looking like that on September 1st, then we'll have other comments here. But I feel pretty good about where they're at right now.
I know there was a tweak of an injury there in rookie minicamp, but it sounds like Oscar Delp, when he's available, is making some things happen. Do you feel like he's potentially carving out a role on this team?
Absolutely. I think he gives them something they didn't have. Look, they were in shotgun last year 75% of the time. Right, they had the second most shotgun snaps in the NFL behind the Cincinnati Bengals, who have like been that over the course of Joe Burrow's time there. I don't think they want to play that way. I think Delp allows them to do a lot more under center stuff because he's a traditional wide tight end, and then we see in these mini camp practices and some of the OTAs that he's a good pass catcher. He's a big guy who can move and he can catch, and like that's going to be a weapon in this offense. I don't know what his numbers are going to look like. I don't think he's going to supplant Juwan Johnson or maybe even Noah Fant as like the top receiving option at tight end. But like he gives them the ability to do more stuff in this offense. I think especially adding him to the mix, and then you got Travis Etienne and David Edwards. I think we're going to see a more diverse offense this year, and he's going to be a big part of that.
And then I'm curious your thoughts on the running back rotation. I know everybody's not there and healthy, and that's a part of the problem. But what do you see early on?
Well, I mean, we're getting like a very limited look at the running game, right?
Right.
No pads. They've done some 11 on 11, but like, how much stock can you really put into it when guys aren't tackling? But I think Etienne's explosiveness really popped out to me, just on a number of occasions where it was like one cut and go. And it's something that's just been so extremely lacking here with this team for years now. It's not just Alvin Kamara, right? He's been part of that. The lack of explosives from him has been an issue, but it's been everybody they've trotted out there. I think Audric Estime had that long touchdown run last year in the I think it was the Titans game, and that was like the first touchdown run of 20 plus yards they've had in like 2 years. And you see that with Etienne in this kind of limited small sample size that we've got. I'm excited about that. As far as how it shakes up behind them, as of right now, it's like, it feels like Alvin Kamara and then kind of coin flip between Devin Neal and Audric Estime. Neal was dealing with something during minicamp. He tweaked something during OTA, so we didn't see him out there this week. But I think there's kind of a battle there, and we'll see what happens with Kendre Miller. I think it's going to be. I think it might be tough for him to make the roster, especially if Alvin Kamara is on the roster. Just because it's he's going to be, by the time September rolls around, he'll be 10 months removed from a major knee injury for a player who's never stayed healthy over the course of his career. I think it's going to be tough for him. He's going to have to show something.
And then out at corner, last one there. Obviously, Quincy Riley growing into year 2, and you went out and got a corner as well. How do you think that position is shaking out?
Yeah, I like what they have out there to start. I do not like their depth.
Yeah.
I thought Martin Emerson, I think, looked good at times. He had a pick in one of the OTA practices. He made a nice play on like a tipped ball. But you like what you see out of Quincy Riley, especially at Kool-Aid McKinstry too. I think he's a player who looks like he's playing with a lot of confidence, which I thought going into last year, but I think the second year in this scheme is going to be really helpful for him. I think he's bound for a good year. But like behind them, you got a couple late round rookies. You've got Martin Emerson, you've got Ike Yadam. These are guys who were either available late on day 3 of the draft or kind of cut loose by several teams throughout their career. And then at star, I'm really concerned about that. It's not just can Jonas Sanker play that, which I think is a big ask. I was really impressed with him last year. But when you start talking about having him run across the field on some of these shallow crossers with guys like JSN or something like that, that's scary. And then behind him, number 2 right now is Jaden Price, who if he's played in a NFL football regular season game, it's been like extremely limited special teams action. He was on the practice squad for most of last year. He was a guy they plucked out of the UFL. And that's right now your number 2 star, right? Like one of your most important positions on your defense. So like, I still think that's an area where they should consider adding, because one injury I feel like could really be kind of crippling for this defense there right now.
It's interesting, and obviously now minicamp in the rearview mirror, and we start to kind of look forward to training camp here in the matter of just over a month. Luke, we appreciate the time, man. Yeah,
my pleasure. I'm going to go write Tyree Wilson on a chalkboard about 500 times.
Don't worry about that. Live radio, 10 hours a week. I do it all the time. It happens.
See you, buddy.
All right, that's Luke Johnson with NOLA.com and The Advocate. Let me remind you about GoTro's Outdoor Power. They're online at GoTrosOnline.com, and you can go there, but I would recommend you go to one of their locations. They got one in Baton Rouge on Airline and one in Gonzales, and I would go like this week. Why? Because they've got some of the best deals they've had all year right now on their Hustler series. This is for the entire month of June, this part. The Raptor series, $200 off. Fast Track series, $500 off. Their commercial mowers, up to $1,500 off. That goes through the end of the month, so you got 12 days there. But if you're looking to get no sales tax on the in-unit stock sales right now, you got to go until the 20th, which is 2 days. So go by right now. Get no sales tax on their Hustlers. That is an unbelievable deal they are offering on Father's Day week. If you need that new zero-turn mower, Gotros Outdoor Power is the place you need to be. They're online, but you can stop on by and go see them on Airline or in Gonzales. That's Gotros Outdoor Power. Thursday shows are brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Just a look at the U.S. Open leaderboard right now. Rory McIlroy with a 2-shot lead. He is 3 under par, has played 14 holes today at a very, very windy Shinnecock. They got delayed earlier this morning by a couple of hours by fog, but the sun has burned that fog off. The greens are as receptive as they're going to be all week, considering how hard the wind is blowing. They're watering them pretty liberally at this point as well, but this course is going to rear its ugly head here over the course of the next 4 days, and I am very, very excited to see it. That wind's going to blow, those greens are going to firm up, and you're going to see something around even par win this golf tournament. Rory McIlroy off to a great start. Some other guys that have done a really good job getting off to good starts. Ricky Fowler's 1 under, Keegan Bradley 1 under, Ludwig Oberg 1 under. They are all on their back nine. Sam Burns is off to a really nice start of his round. He has played 15 holes. He is even par. So is Brian Harmon. So really, really interesting stuff there from Shinnecock in New York. Keep you posted on that as we continue to move through the show today, but don't have a segment devoted for it because we got so much to get to. We're going to do a lot of baseball here over the next 30 minutes. In 15 minutes, I will tell you what Major League Baseball is proposing about its draft, and I'll give you a hint. It involves high school players going to LSU. So we'll talk about that in 15 minutes. So let's go to Omaha next and talk about the College World Series with Joe Healy. We'll do that.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Love telling you about my friends over at Auctioner. Whether you're an athlete or just trying to stay active, Auctioner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute can help keep you moving. They can get you up moving. Got to have access to the highest levels of specialized care, nationally renowned expertise, the latest equipment, modern facilities, and that includes a walk-in orthopedic clinic right there at Elite Training Complex on Burbank. So if you've got a sprain, a strain, a minor dislocation, even an ACL issue, you can walk in on Burbank at Elite Training Complex without an appointment and be seen. So walk in today. They got on-site x-ray, and they can treat all of those minor injuries. From the field to recovery, Auctioner Andrews Institute is there to help move your healing forward and get you back to what you love, whether that's playing high school sports, whether you're an ancient athlete, whether that's getting back in the gym or playing with the grandkids. Doesn't matter. Learn more at auctioner.org/brortho.
Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
A magic
You're
beyond
listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Thursday shows brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. No place that serves some pretty good beef. Omaha, Nebraska. I ate plenty of it last summer. None this summer up in Omaha, but one guy that no doubt has, Joe Healy, D1 Baseball's SEC Extra Team. Been in Omaha now for a week, and they've got one more weekend to go. It'll be Oklahoma and North Carolina for the title. Joe joins us now as he has Thursdays throughout the season. Joe, how are you?
Doing well. Had to seek out a salad the other day just because it's been so much beef here in Omaha. You know, the body just at some point says enough is enough. We need to get some greens in here.
It was a sad state of affairs for me last year because I was over at the casino in Council Bluffs doing my show and staying there, and there were more French dips and cheeseburgers. It was a bleak scene for me over there, just eating horrible caloric foods, but very tasty and a lot of fun, and I hope to do it again next year. But this year, no LSU, but a lot of drama up there in Omaha. I guess I've got to start with Oklahoma at this point because we talked a couple of weeks ago, are they even any good? I guess I got to kind of put the sword down on this one. They're playing fantastic baseball. What have you seen?
Yeah, they really are. I mean, they're the team that is playing the best. They've been the best team out here so far through the first week of this tournament, and I was wrong on them too. Like I was pretty skeptical of them actually being a good baseball team. Is going as far as recently as going back to the regional, going into that regional. I wasn't sure that they were going to win a game out in Atlanta, and you know, then they have that. They've just kind of caught fire ever since they came back from that 8-2 deficit against Georgia Tech in that first regional final game. They come back from a 7-3 deficit in the second regional final game, and really ever since then they've caught fire, and they're playing well in all aspects. This is not a situation where they've found one or two starting pitchers that have just kind of carried them the entire way, or the offense has done all the heavy lifting. They've really been a really well-rounded team out here, and at this point, I think North Carolina is the better team on balance. But if Oklahoma continues to play the way they have these last couple of days, like I don't see any reason why they couldn't win the title.
They certainly can playing like that. I mean, Georgia's as good as anybody, and they just punked them twice. I'm curious if you've talked to Skip Johnson about the evolution of his starting rotation, which was early in the season. It was Cam Johnson and L.J. Mercurius. That was their top two, and then kind of figured out after that. Well, they've won 3 games in Omaha, and those 2 guys haven't started any of them. Now, L.J.'s still coming out of the bullpen for him, but, like, where do these freshmen come from?
Yeah, it's a really good question. You know, Cord Rager's been a part of the rotation all season, and he's just a classic case of a guy who's gotten better. And I asked about that. I wrote about that. There's a piece in the site about that. And, you know, Cord Rager just honestly said, like, I just got more mature. I just learned how to navigate games against really good baseball teams. They also messed a little bit with his arm slot, lowered it a little bit to allow for a little bit more extension on his pitches, and that's something he's gotten more comfortable with as the season has gone on. Skip Johnson threw a Peyton Tolley comp on him as a guy to compare him to in terms of the type of extension and arm slot he has on his pitches. And so I think that's just a case of a guy who's gotten better as the season has gone on. Now, it's still pretty rare for a freshman. Typically, we're talking about freshman wall kind of stuff when we get to this point of the season. That has not been the case with Cord Rager. The more interesting ones, though, are Xander Mercurius and Nick Weslowski. You know, Xander is someone who came on a little bit as a bullpen guy as the season went on. But I didn't anticipate him being this, but he might honestly have the best stuff of anybody on this team, and they've known that for a while now. And it's just now feels like he's finally getting his opportunities to go out there and show what he can do. And Weslowski's someone who came totally out of left field. I got asked by I will leave the person nameless, but an ESPN employee who's been working on the broadcast side during this tournament, who asked me, "What do you got on Nick Weslowski?" And I said, honestly, I don't know. Like, I got very little on him. I'm going to have to do my research too, because I didn't know very much about him, and he just kind of came out of nowhere to throw a really strong start last night against Georgia. And Skip Johnson in postgame at one point said, look, some of this is my fault. Like, the fact that this seems like such a surprise, because I think he even realized it took him maybe too long to just throw his best guys. And maybe, you know, it's easy to kind of maybe not believe that your best guys really are these freshmen, but at some point you kind of stop worrying about hurting feelings or what you've done the rest of the season or the message it sends to everyone else, all this kind of peripheral stuff. At some point, you just need to throw the guys you think give you the best chance to win, and it feels like that's what this has boiled down to, is he believes those freshmen are giving his team the best chance to win, and the proof is in the pudding right now that is the case.
I watched an all-time Oregon State team just run out of steam offensively against LSU in 2017. Wake didn't hit a lot against LSU. Now, Skeens had something to do with that in 23. Georgia didn't hit when they got to Omaha. How do you explain that?
Yeah, I think it's a team that just went quiet at the wrong time of year. I think a lot of it's the just baseball element of this, of like, you get into this situation and these games you're facing good competition every single day. You're not seeing any bad pitchers. That's the other thing about playing here in the College World Series is these staffs get really, really small. I mean, Oklahoma's used 4 guys. North Carolina has used 5 guys, like, to get through those 3 games. They're not really looking to extend their pitching staffs any more than the bare minimum number of pitchers. So you're not seeing any bad pitchers out here. So I think that's an element. But I think they also got frustrated. Like, it looked like you could physically see the pressing over the last couple of games for Georgia in this tournament, where if they were using wooden bats, they would be grinding the bats down to sawdust with their hands. That's how much they felt like they were pressing at the plate and just gripping the bats so tight. And maybe it's because the ball wasn't jumping the way they wanted it to. Maybe it was the frustration of certain guys that just went quiet. Trey Phelps has been quiet really since the regional, and especially since getting suspended. He was something like 1 for 13 going into their last game in games since he got suspended for the first game of that super regional. So I think it was just frustration at a certain point set in, and the absolute worst thing you can do when you're struggling offensively is to try harder. And it felt like that's all Georgia knew how to do, was just try harder, and it just didn't work, and it just led to more frustration and them trying even harder. And you just get stuck in this vicious cycle that created a situation where they got eliminated without making much of a dent offensively. The success they had here was basically just because they pitched really well.
Are you ready to pencil Georgia in for another 19 or 20 SEC wins next year and 145 homers just because they've done that the last few years? You figure, oh, well, that's Charlie Condon, and then they get Daniel Jackson. And is this just kind of what Wes Johnson's program is going to be until it's not?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they do a really good job recruiting. They've already got some guys in the transfer portal that I think are going to be some pretty good fits. Mikey Bell is probably the name that I look at most there. He's 2-time West Coast Conference Player of the Year. He's headed to Georgia, a guy with some pop. I think that's maybe their next guy. So I just kind of assume that that's going to be what they are. They recruit to that ballpark really, really well. That's where the home runs come from. And at this point, this is now, 3 seasons in a row with Wes Johnson at the helm, where they've been pretty much exactly what they've been in the regular season in terms of having that kind of success. And now they've finally broken through and gotten to Omaha. And I do think that maybe relieves some of the pressure. It had been a while since Georgia had been here, and they made a little run. Like, it's disappointing they're gone because a lot of people looked at them, myself included, as the favorite going into the tournament. So I know there's disappointment they're headed home. But really, in the grand scheme of things, a successful season for Georgia to get back to the stage, to get to the Final Four of the CWS, that's a big step forward for a program that I think was starting to feel a little bit of that pressure to get back and was starting to be a little bit of a pressure cooker in home postseason events, and they finally broke through that. I think that's going to be good for the program in the long run as well.
Two of the other teams that went home early, Ole Miss and Texas. I picked Ole Miss to win it just because I liked those 3 pitchers, and they just didn't pitch great, and the bullpen let them down as well. What do you make of Ole Miss's into their season and where things go from here, where it feels like all 3 of those guys in the rotation are going to be moving on?
Yeah, that's going to be a tough thing to replace there, especially, it's so difficult when you have a guy like Taylor Rabe. He was such a big part of their success, but at the same time, he has improved his stock so much that now he's guaranteed to be signing in the draft, whereas, 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, maybe you wouldn't have said that. That's the double-edged sword of having someone emerge like that throughout the season. But I like the general trajectory of this program. It feels like they've kind of gotten back on course after some struggles immediately after winning that national title, and that was a big theme for them throughout this postseason, is that there's a group of players, Judd Utermark, Will Furness, guys like Hunter Elliott, obviously, that stuck around the Ole Miss program when a lot of other people weren't. I mean, they lost Andrew Fisher. They lost Liam Doyle. They lost Wes Mendez to Florida State. Like, this was not a program that was in a really good place a couple of years ago, and they course-corrected here and got back to Omaha. And so, yeah, you're disappointed. I picked them to get to the finals, so I was disappointed, too, for them to go 0-2. But they're another program that I think you look at the big picture here, and you realize that this is a really good place for them to have ended the season, given what they were going through just a couple of years ago.
Jim Schlossnagle's had a lot of really, really good teams over 3 different stops and still has not won the whole thing. Do you feel like they're close?
I do feel like they're close, but then you look back kind of at this run in the College World Series, and they really didn't end up being all that close. So I kind of am in 2 minds of it, where it does feel a little bit like, they kind of continually, Schlossnagle has kind of continually gotten himself to this stage, and there was just that once at A&M where he got 1 win away, but for the most part, his times here in Omaha have ended short of the CWS finals, and I'm not saying that's necessarily a him problem, because you don't get to this stage that many times without being really, really good at your job, but I have a hard time kind of figuring out if Texas is any closer to where they were to getting to a national title than they were before, or if they're still kind of in that same spot. I think next year is a big year for them. I think the roster is probably going to be better than this one. It was already a very good roster, but you consider the young pitchers I think they're going to have back. They've got a really nice core coming back. I think next year has a chance to be even better than this one was from a regular season standpoint. And that's, I think, going to be a really good test case for, okay, how close are you really? Can you come back in back-to-back years and get to Omaha? Can you challenge to win a national title year in and year out, as opposed to being every 3 or 4 years, as has kind of been the case with Texas going back several head coaches now, where every 3 or 4 years it feels like they're in that mix. Can you be at the type of team that's there every single year, year after year? That's kind of the next challenge for them.
Oklahoma and North Carolina starting Saturday night. You got to pick?
I'm going Oklahoma. It's just at this point, I need to stop doubting them, and maybe I'm going to be wrong again, and North Carolina is going to control this thing. But at some point, I'm just going to kind of give in and say that this team is playing the best right now, and I'm going to go with form over the better team throughout the regular season and the postseason. So North Carolina, I think, is the better team. They're the deeper team. They're the team that I have, that all season has rewarded the faith that we've shown in them being a top 5 team basically all season long. But, man, Oklahoma looks really good right now. So I'm going to go with current form over the form of the last 3 to 4 months.
I'm sure there's plenty of salad options back at home. Get back to the beef over the next couple of days, all right?
All right, will do.
Joe Healy, D1 Baseball's SEC Extra Team, with us all season long. Appreciate him for checking in from somewhere in Middle America. It'll be a fun final starting on Saturday night. Take a time out when we come back. Major League Baseball is proposing drastic changes to the MLB draft. How does it affect LSU? Next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com. HighlandIG.com is the website. Jonathan Carver and his team are awesome folks to work with They know that benefits are really, really tough right now for business owners, for CFOs, trying to make sure you've got the right coverage for healthcare, for dental, for vision, for your employees, but also trying to make sure that you're not cutting too far into your budget annually because of how much it's costing. If you've had a couple of bad renewals or you're dreading the upcoming renewal and you'd like a second option, the Howard Insurance Group can do that for you. There's a carrier in Louisiana that's really been raising rates over the last 3 or 4 years. If that's been the case in your business, contact the Howard Insurance Group. They're not a magic bullet. I can't promise you they're going to save you 20%, but they can offer another option. They're an independent broker. They've got contracts with different carriers. They can give you a second look to maybe help you on the bottom line. They know how big it is to have your employees covered. That helps attract talent into your organization and retain key pieces to your organization. If you're looking to make a change there or just want a second opinion, the Howard Insurance Group is happy to help you with your benefits. The Howard Insurance Group, they're online at highlandig.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Remind you about One Bath and Closets. They're online at onebathandclosets.com. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. It doesn't have to be a huge full-scale renovation to get David Duvall and his team involved. If you just want to do a tub-to-shower conversion, that's right in their wheelhouse. Maybe you've got one of those big 90s-style tubs. It's got all those jacuzzi jets that you don't ever use. It's taking up a ton of space. You never sit in it. Take it out. Put in a glass walk-in shower. Change the aesthetic and the functionality of your bathroom. Add some value to your home. David and his team can oftentimes complete these tasks in 3 to 5 days. Every job's different, so you can't guarantee that, but that's oftentimes what you're looking at, and it can transform your bathroom. So if you want to do a full-scale renovation, they can do it, but if you want to do something small like a tub-to-shower conversion, let David Duvall and his team get involved. They've been at it for 30-plus years. It's David Duvall and One Bath and Closets. They're online at onebathandclosets.com. All right, this is a new proposal. Now, keep that word in mind. It's a proposal. This has not been discussed, not been debated, not been negotiated, not been approved. It's a proposal by Major League Baseball, but it could have massive implications on college baseball. Jeff Passan writes, the MLB today proposed an overhauled domestic amateur entry system that removes high school players from the draft. You heard that right. Removes high school players from the draft, makes college players eligible after the sophomore year, so 2 years in college, shortens the draft from 20 rounds to 12 rounds, and cuts the bonus pool from $360 million to $200 million. We're talking about taking $160 million out of the draft bonus pools. That's what sources have told ESPN. So what does this mean for college baseball? Well, it means that Connor Griffin plays college baseball for 2 years. It means that Joey Gallo plays college baseball for 2 years. It means that Trevor Story plays college baseball for 2 years. It means Delano DeShields plays college baseball for 2 years. It means Cam Caminiti plays college baseball for 2 years. Robbie Snelling plays college baseball for 2 years. Mikey Ryan plays college baseball for 2 years. These are all guys that I'm listing that LSU has gotten signatures from that have bypassed LSU for the professional ranks. They would all be playing college baseball. Now, you've got guys like Alex Bregman that you lock in for 3 years. You've got guys that you lock in for 3 years all over the board that they're no longer locked in for 3 years. It's only 2 years. But Jay Johnson recruits the high-end high school players as well as anybody in the nation. Tim Corbin's in that discussion with Vanderbilt, absolutely. Tennessee has gotten involved with that. Under Vitello, we'll see what Josh Elander can do. Florida's generally got a couple. Mississippi State's generally got a couple. But LSU generally has a lot. And last year they got crushed, lost 8 guys. This year you're probably going to lose 6 or 8 guys. And those guys would end up at LSU. Why are they doing this, you might ask? Why would the MLB want to do that? Well, a couple reasons. One, minor league baseball is very expensive. You're paying a lot of these guys a lot of money up front. You have 4 or 5 teams you're operating. They all travel. It's very expensive. You know what's not expensive to Major League Baseball? College baseball. Send them there for 2 years. We don't pay a cent. They shrink minor league baseball, maybe to 2 or 3 organizations they're dealing with. They get a chance to scout guys in the SEC and the ACC instead of playing American Legion ball against guys who are about to be in fraternities and selling insurance in the next 4 years. And all of a sudden, they've cut costs and made better draft evaluations. All the while, college baseball would get a huge influx of talent, and I think this would be a huge positive for LSU to not have to fight the professional ranks to get all the guys that you recruit on campus. This would be huge for LSU. Now, again, this is not finalized. This is a labor stoppage that's coming, and it's going to be a cutthroat negotiation. The owners want a salary cap. They now want to put fewer guys in the professional ranks. They now want to force players into college. Major League Baseball Players Association is not going to like any of this stuff. So the likelihood of it getting passed, to me, I have no idea. I just know that most of the stuff MLB comes up with, MLBPA is not going to like. But I will say this. The thing that they're going to fight the hardest, meaning the PA, Players Association, fighting the owners, is the salary cap. That's the one they're not going to budge on. It'll be the last thing they budge on if they do. So if they're going to have to make some concessions, this may be one of the things that they do concede on. If we assume that both parties are going to have to concede a little bit, the MLBPA is far more likely to tell 17 and 18-year-olds they got to go to LSU and Arkansas for a couple of years than tell Bryce Harper he's got to take a pay cut because they got a salary cap. So this is something to monitor. It's going to be a ridiculous winter of negotiations. There's a lockout that's going to come. It's going to make me want to vomit everywhere. But this is one of the things that could impact us locally here with LSU. If you're getting all these superstars that Jay Johnson gets, they get picked and signed for $5 million, they end up at the box. That could be something. Hour 2 next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Neil and Melissa have been running the shop for 40 years. They know what they're doing. A lot of you in South Louisiana this morning lost power. A lot of my friends did over in New Orleans. If you lost power this morning, how big a drag was that? You can't work. You got kids home from school. What are you doing? It's just a bummer. You can prevent that. You can give yourself the peace of mind to know the power is not going out at my house with a Generac home standby generator from the folks at Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Give them a call today. 985-397-1562. 985-397-1562. You can call the Gonzales location, 225-300-9389. Say, Neil, Melissa, I heard about it on Hunt's show. Today was the last day I want to lose power. I want that Generac home standby generator. A local team will install it. They'll do the maintenance on it. It's Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Find them online. It's boudreauxelectrical.com, boudreauxelectrical.com.